What's up, guys? Jason up in New Age Revolution down here in the cave for another episode of Whatever Happened To. Tonight we take it back to those carpeted rooms, those paneled walls, those dated kitchens. We're talking about the childhood homes that we grew up in. The childhood homes that our parents still might live in. Or the childhood homes that many families have lived in since we moved out. We're going to talk about all that on Whatever Happened To Our Childhood Home. Yeah, guys, that's a big one for me. That's a topic. That's definitely a deep leveled topic. The childhood home, and not just the childhood home. There were many childhood homes. You know, maybe several of us moved multiple times. Maybe we lived in one home our entire life, and like I said earlier, our parents still live there today. So it might not just be about one particular home. You know, it might also be about what that house looked like. You know, the 80s interior that is near and dear to my heart for many reasons. Some of them we'll talk about tonight. I was driving around today, and since COVID began, some folks would choose to do what we call a telehealth appointment, and probably some of you have experienced that as well since COVID, where you talk on the phone, you have your session, your appointment over the phone, and I don't like to sit in an office and do that. It's I can't sit still for an hour on the phone, so I will drive. I will drive on with Bluetooth and have a conversation with a person that way, and it's great. I love it. But often, what I'll do is I'll drive through some of my old neighborhoods that I grew up in, and today in particular, the idea that got me thinking about this show topic was I drove through my old neighborhood today, and I'll show you some pictures as I'm telling you. This picture in particular. This is the house that I grew up in right here. This is the street, that I played on, the street that I rode my gold and yellow mag-wheeled BMX bicycle. The street where I played kickball, the street where I built forts with neighborhood kids. I love driving through that area every once in a while because as soon as I cross sort of an imaginary border to get into the town, it starts to feel differently. I start to feel it. I start to feel the nostalgia. And it's a great feeling, but it's also a sad feeling, because it's of a time gone, So anyway, the 80s house, our childhood home, the home you grew up in. Like I said, some of us lived in many homes from childhood. Some of us moved all around. I know I did. I know I moved several times. So when I say that house that you saw the picture of, when I say that was the house I grew up in, I don't mean mathematically, I don't mean age-wise, but it's the house that it all began in for me. In that very particular house was the introduction to wrestling, was the introduction to the LJNs, just, the best era of all time, all happened in that house. And some of us are fortunate enough to have never moved, to have stayed in that home, stayed in that childhood home until we were 18 or 20 or whatever, went off to college or got a job or got married and moved out, whatever. And some of you even have parents or a parent who lives in that home still. So you get to go home. I can't tell you how many times, friends of the channel have said, hey, I'm going back to my parents' house. I'll go up in my attic and see if I can find some good stuff for you. Because it's still all in that attic. Maybe the attic that you played in as a kid. And if you are that person, if you have that house still in your family, be very thankful. Because for many of us who have moved or who moved multiple times as a kid, stuff always disappears with the move. You always lose something. Something is gone and doesn't come back every time you move. You leave something behind or something gets lost. And in the figurative bigger picture, you leave a piece of your childhood behind every single time you move as well. You leave the neighborhood kids, you leave the memories, you leave the forts, you leave the kickball field in your front yard with the big tree as second base and the light pole as first place. You leave that behind. When I think of the childhood home, I think of the comfort level. And that's where it gets hard to talk about because I can't really put it into words how comfortable our homes were back then. It's a feeling that I've definitely tried to recreate unsuccessfully. I haven't been able to do it. And I don't know if it was about the style. I do know. I think it was about the style. I think it was the interior design of 80s homes. I think it was the colors. I think it was the popularity of carpeting. I know this all sounds, a little much, but I'm all about comfort. And when we were first talking about having kids, the house that I live in right now, I didn't feel was comfortable enough for a family, right? It didn't have that feel. We've got hardwood floors all throughout the house and little area rugs and big bulky coffee tables at one time we had and it just didn't feel like a home. It didn't feel comfortable. And that's something that I've tried to recreate. And I've sort of given up because I don't think I can recapture that feeling, the comfort of our homes, and 80s interior and 80s styles really make me feel comfortable. When I think about the house that I grew up in, again, I think of the warmth of the carpets, carpets through the whole house, right? Carpet was like, you had carpeting in every single room. Grossly, you had sometimes carpeting in the bathroom and sometimes carpeting in the kitchen. That's a little much, but I've seen it. But carpeting in your bedroom, carpeting in the living room, the family room, so you could sit on the floor, you could watch TV on the floor. It felt warm. There's nothing hard about the linoleum floor or the laminate floor or the wood floor. It was inviting. It was comfortable. It was warm. The wood paneling. Nothing relaxes me more than the wood paneling. I love that feeling. And we had some wood paneling in our family room and in my bedroom, in that house that I showed you the picture of. And just the style, the style of the homes in the 80s, the kitchens with that wood grain cabinetry. And countertops, just Formica countertops, and the big giant microwave sitting on the kitchen counter, and again the stereo systems like this one behind me, and the big Zenith console TV on the floor with the bulky VCR on top, or the Atari. It was comfort. I think everything was based on comfort, right? The water beds. I remember my parents had a water bed, and as a kid, whenever I was like sick or staying home from school, I would always climb in the water bed just because it was warm, right? It was warm because it was your parents' bed, and it was warm and it was comfortable. And I see that with my kids today. They climb into bed and they're instantly warm, or they can instantly fall asleep better than they could in their rooms. But that overall feeling, that overall look, and like I said, I've never been able to recreate it. I have not been able to recreate it, and I think it's because, it's not the same energy. We got too much stuff. Everything is really sleek. Everything is really modern, and it just doesn't put out the right feel. Like this big bulky thing behind me. All this thing does is make music, right? That's all it's supposed to do, is produce music. And we've certainly figured out a way to put music on something this big. Or we've got, whatever. We've got our phones hooked up to some dock, some docking speaker system in our kitchens, and that's how we listen to our music. But to me, that's too sleek. It's too cold. It's not warm. It's not inviting. It's not comfortable. Music coming out of this thing, and the two giant speakers that flank it, are warm and comforting to me. They're. See, like I said, it's hard to describe because it's something you can't really. You just know it. It's just a feeling, right? So, whenever I think about, or whenever I drive down that street, even though I'm not even in the house, I'm just driving down the street, obviously, I start to feel it. I start to get a feeling of warmth and comfort. And if some of you guys, like I said, have parents who are living in the home that you grew up in, what's it like to go home? Do you still get that same feeling? I'm sure your parents have modernized the houses since, I'm sure, unless they're awesome and they didn't. But do you get the same feeling? I remember I lived with my grandparents from like 14 to 21, 22, I left. And they owned that house since I was 8, right? And I spent a lot of time there. So I didn't start living there officially until 14. But that house produced the feeling. That house produced the comfort. Maybe because it was decorated by grandparents. They had carpeting in their family room. Their family room was so it was a split. It's called a center split. 4 steps up to the bedroom, 4 steps down to the family room, and then the kitchen and the living room and the dining room on the first floor, or the second floor, the middle floor, whatever floor, doesn't matter. And that's the kind of style house that I showed you the picture of. And so whenever I was down in the family room from age 14 to 22, and the lights were off and it was nighttime, and it felt home. It felt comfortable. And I remember when my grandmother had died, and then my grandfather was sick with cancer. He was dying too. This is about 2011. One night he was in the hospital, I think, and for some reason I went over there and spent the night even though nobody was there. I don't know why I did that. I'm not sure why. I don't know why, but I was there, and I was there by myself, and it felt very, very cozy and comfortable and homey, even though I was, well into my 30s at that point. It still recreated the feeling, and since then I haven't been able to. And if again, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's because I probably don't know what I'm talking about, right? It's just an individual feeling. So the childhood home, I don't know, just the vibe, the neighborhood, the neighborhood kids, when I moved into that house, I remember the first day I moved in, I took my bike and I rode up and down the street, And I just rode up and down about 50 or 60 times until somebody noticed me, until some kid popped his head out the window. And then you made friends and you played, and it was great. And like I said, the front yard was our kickball field. And the maple tree was second base. And the lamp pole, we had a lamp in our front yard, right? Like a big lamp. And the lamp pole was first base. The oak tree, the maple tree was second base. There was a gas pipe in the ground in the yard, sunken in, but that was third base, right? You couldn't see it, but it was third. It was there. That was third base, and it was the best. It was the best kickball field of all time. Kids knocking on your door at 8 o'clock in the morning on a summer or a Saturday or a Sunday, wanting you to come outside, and not going inside until dinner time. The neighborhood, just the neighborhood, the gang, the kids, right, the crew, and I had one. I had three. Two boys that lived on the street, one kid that lived up the street a little further, a girl across the street that we all had crushes on, and we were just the gang. It was the greatest. It was the greatest of all time. But inside is where the real vibe happens, and like I said, the style of the house. I'll show you a few more pictures. This is a house. This style of house just screamed at me today. I was driving through my neighborhood, my old neighborhood, and rolled up on this house, and just that. They have not changed this house probably since the 70s, and I love that feeling. I love the look of that house. I love the style. It just screams 80s. And then there's a kind of like a subdivision that was probably built in the late 70s, and it still has that you can see it, that kind of like that big stone entranceway, right? It just says, here, welcome to this track. This is a new track in 1970, and we put up this big stone plaque. Love that vibe. Just love that new track, 80s new track feeling. So anyway, your childhood home, where is it? Whatever happened to it? Where is it today? Have you gone back? Have you checked it out? Have you driven by? Or do you get to go visit it whenever you go see your parents? Do you live in it still today? What a goal that would have been. What a dream that would have been, to be able to just pass down the house from generation to generation. Stuff that can't be recreated. I got my own castle, but it's not the same, and I don't know if my kids will ever know what I'm talking about. I don't know if they'll ever feel like, I think they will, because sometimes we talk about moving, and the kids are like, what do you mean? Where would we go? Where would our stuff go? Would we come back here and hang out and visit? And they kind of think it's our summer home, kind of deal. So they're definitely attached. What would I do with my room? They ask, and I guess I want them to ask that, because I do want them to be tied to this. And realistically, we probably won't ever move, and my kids will be able to grow up in the house that, or grow up in the same house the whole time, and visit it when they're, when Liam gets to come down here and find his old toys in the basement somewhere. So anyway, that's that. Whatever happened to our childhood home? I know where mine is. I check it out every once in a while. It's still standing. Where's yours? We'll do this again tomorrow with another topic, and then we'll get the wrestling with the past going, PACW round 2 going, and everything else that we got planned on our channel. I'll see y'all again. Good night now.